everybody.
Welcome.
This is Sherry.
I'm Dale.
And this is the Green Nurse Show. And on the Green Nurse Show, what we've come to call it is living your best life. And what does that mean, Dale? It means that we do the best we can with what we have in front of us. And healing isn't necessarily the absence of the disease or the absence of a condition or something wrong, but what it is healing is a way of empowering, looking at and empowering ourselves.
And looking at all the different aspects of health. It's not just cannabis that we talk about here. It's all of the other lifestyle related things that can contribute to health or contribute to disease.
Yep.
So
today's show, we are going to be honoring our veterans. We're here with Ellen Brown. She's a United States Air Force veteran. She's an international speaker, and she's founder of Sensimilla
Seminars.
Seminars. Yes. And we were talking. You've been here for a little while. We've been hanging out. We've been chatting, and I was telling you that my daughter, she's going to school tomorrow. I'm bringing her to the University of Maine, and she's going to be doing Navy ROTC. And it was, what about when you were a young girl? What was that like when you decided?
Well, I didn't find my calling until about the same time. It was senior year in high school, and I started thinking, what next? And one of my best friends, Tommy Charlton, the year prior, had actually joined the United States Marine Corps. So I was trying to make my decisions. Who do you talk to but your best friends? And Tommy was like, I think you would do great in the Air Force. You go to the Air Force, figure out what you want to do, and then go from there. So I actually, because he was my best friend, it's sage information. It's a very trusted source. And he was already a year into his enlistment, so I started thinking about it, and I thought, the Air Force is the right decision for me. And I actually was lucky enough to go buddy system with my best friend Amanda Gladding, so I had somebody in basic training to go through all those times with. I left 2 weeks after I graduated high school back in 2007. My family had mixed opinions on it. Some people thought this will be great for you. A couple of my relatives actually remarked, well, the military's for boys. And for them, when I left, I kind of stayed gone, and then as time's gone on, we've kind of, healed those wounds and moved on. But not everybody was as, outright supportive, and even now it's joining during a time of war. So what does that mean? So thinking about everything that goes into it. So my mother definitely had some strong opinions on it. My father, thought it was for the best, but as you know, if your daughter has a calling or she thinks that this sense of patriotism is something that she wants to follow, it's definitely something to support. And it'll be, after doing the enlistment, I can say it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah. I'm excited for a new chapter of her life, and it's so wonderful that you are a veteran and you've served and you have a great story as to to your career and where it's led you now. So you want to share a little bit about that? So
absolutely. So
when
I joined the United States Air Force, I went open admin, so I could have gotten assigned any job that they had where they needed placement, but I actually ended up with nutrition. So I found myself in Mountain Home, Idaho, working in a hospital for 2 years, and during that time I did one-on-one counselings with patients as well as teaching large-scale nutrition classes. And that's where I kind of developed a skill for public speaking, as well as creating curriculum, doing one-on-one counselings, creating, dietary plans, and having follow-up conversations, and actually seeing results with the patients, whether or not it was weight loss or, preparing for, if one of my patients once wanted to lose weight, so she would be less likely for gestational diabetes, and she ended up losing the weight, and she ended up conceiving. So that was really beautiful, because those tiny steps where you assist somebody or just give them advice or teach them, they go and then they are able to impart it in their own lives and change their lives. So I thought that was one of the best stories I have was her journey. That's
so awesome. And you got an award.
I did get an award within my second year of serving. I received a nutritional airman of the year for Air Combat Command. So out of 16 bases, I was the airman that had, I put in a lot of work, and I was really, honored to achieve that within such a small amount of time of being in. What ended up happening was during my service, the first year, we actually ended up going from being staffed with 7 people to 2 people in the course of a year. We had a cook who ended up leaving. Our nutritionist ended up going to another base. Our master sergeant became the first shirt, and then we had 2 people deploy. So it just ended up being myself and another tech sergeant to run our entire department. So for an E1 or an E3 at the time, I shouldn't have been necessarily doing the job that I was doing, but because we were so undermanned, I ended up taking those on and doing those one-on-one patient counselings and teaching those large-scale classes. And actually, because you're working with patients, so you have to take a lot of pride in what you do, and you have to realize that what I'm doing right now is they're going to take this home, and they really need to be educated to the best of my ability so that they can heal themselves with nutrition in whatever facet that means. Mm-hmm. So it was a real honor to be recognized for all the hard work that I had put in.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, so here, we talk about cannabis on the show, as you know, the Green Nurse show. We talk a lot about green, part of it. So let's leap.
What led you to cannabis?
What led you to cannabis?
So once I had gotten out of the Air Force, it was 2009 in Massachusetts. We had just gotten decriminalization, and I hadn't really smoked. I had absolutely never smoked in the Air Force. So I got out, and my friends had all had that college summer and those college experiences because I left 2 weeks after graduating high school. So when I got out, some of my friends were like, well, try marijuana, let's smoke. So I tried it, and I was so relaxed, and I had such a sense of calm and mindfulness, and I realized how much it was just, helping me live a better life, that I realized that it was something I wanted to pursue. So I started working 2 jobs for a year. I had always been reading High Times magazine since I was 16, so I kept reading it, and I read about this thing called the Emerald Triangle. So I was like, if I can get myself out of the Emerald Triangle, I can do it. So I worked 2 jobs. I saved up everything, and kind of on a hope and a prayer, I moved out there, and I just started.
To the Emerald Triangle in California?
In California, yeah. I moved out to Humboldt County. I moved out to Ferndale, California, and within the first week of moving, I had switched over my license. I got my medical marijuana card, and I was growing in my house. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to start growing. So
talk
what
about
was the goal?
Dive in.
Just to do it. I just wanted.
You just wanted to grow.
I just wanted to grow. I wanted to be able to, have my own medicine, grow my own strains, and just, make my mistakes where I was going to make my mistakes. Because, you make a lot of mistakes, but you'll never make the same mistake twice in the grow room. So trial by error was kind of the way I was doing it. And what I had found out was there was actually this one dispensary called the Humboldt Patient Resource Center, and you could go and you could volunteer your time, and they would, let you help take care of the plants. So that's where I ended up spending a lot of my time, and the lead cultivator at the time, his name was Kevin Jordy, and I had no idea how to take a cutting. I didn't know anything about soil or life cycles or anything like that. So I would volunteer, and I'd stay there hours, and I'd get to take cuttings. I get to take care of the plants, and I get to transplant, and then I go home and take care of my own garden. So that volunteer work, that time that the dispensary allowed me as a patient was invaluable, because then I was able to go take care of myself and then also teach other people. So I had learned really fast that living in Humboldt, it was kind of like a saturated market. They only had 3 brick and mortar dispensaries, and they were all full up. So there weren't any jobs hiring at the time. So I thought about it, and then I moved 3.5 hours inland to Redding, California, in Shasta County, and they had 26 brick and mortar dispensaries. So I liked my odds of getting a job a lot better there. Mm-hmm. So I just went to all the dispensaries. I just started to introduce myself, and then they had Harvest Fest on October 31st, and I went there with my resume, and I just passed out my resume, and I got a call back.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it was amazing.
See, your hard work is paying off.
Exactly, and I'd moved out there July. It was now October 31st, and they hired me, and guess the first day I started? November 11th, Veterans Day.
Oh,
it was the best Veterans Day I've ever had.
And that's a sacred number,
great.
too.
It was fantastic. So
that's awesome.
I was thankful for the opportunity. I just started as a trimmer, and then they eventually needed a bud tender. So I applied, and then I got the job, and then they needed help in the grow room. I'll volunteer. So
Right.
what can I do to
Right.
help? How can I get in there? And then I started with sweeping, and then it started with cuttings, and then it started with making the nutrients in the feeds. I started to make a little bit more executive decisions after reading different books, because it started to take a lot of reading is what I learned. Just like with nutrition, if you want to be proficient at something, or you want to excel at something, and you want to be able to provide knowledge, you have to have the knowledge to give. So taking it upon yourself to read as many books as possible. So I started reading about all the different genetics and all the different breeders and all the different cannabinoids that those strains could possibly offer, and then thinking about the demographic I was seeing with my patients, and if we have something that's high in CBD for maybe seizures or cancer or glaucoma or whatever it is, or maybe THC or whatever it may be for all of these different ailments and all these different patients that come in. So I had started to kind of help myself, and then I realized how much it was genuinely benefiting other people after 2 years of working there. From here, from going right from high school to the Air Force to
Cannabis.
2009, I never heard about an endocannabinoid system until I started working there, until I started becoming aware of patients' needs and what they were looking for, and the different types of treatment and the different ways that they could use cannabis, whether or not it was a topical application or ingesting it or vaping it or whatever it may be, and talking to them about strains and dosages, and realizing that it's a safe haven, a dispensary, being a bud tender or patient care advocate, whichever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Being the person at the front, talking to the patients, interacting with the patients, you build a rapport, and I'm sure that you've had that happen with your own patients in different settings where you see them so frequently or you see them so often. There are some patients who they started right when they got diagnosed, maybe with cancer or glaucoma, and then I've worked there for years, so I'd been working with
you
them
can
on
see the follow-up
what strain
as they
worked for
come
you,
in,
how did this
right.
make you feel, and it's just so rewarding working in a hospital, working with patients, and actually saying, hey, how did that work for you? How do you feel? And they say, I slept for the first time, I ate for the first time, I feel good for the first time. So it's a job that I do with pride. And then time went on, and then it was 2012, and I learned real fast and quick the importance of advocacy and how fast one moratorium can change everything. We had 26 dispensaries, and they banned them all. The Reading City Council banned every single dispensary back in 2012.
Wow.
We tried to fight it with a court hearing. We didn't win, so we were actually forced to shut our doors, and it was it was hard for the entire. It's been hard for the entire town. It was hard for the patients. It was devastating for the people that had put their heart and souls into being entrepreneurs and starting up. And then lastly, it's kind of what about the staff? There were hundreds of people that were hired. So thinking about, well, where do those jobs go, and where are these patients going to get their medicine? And so with that, it kind of sparked my advocacy, because at the time I would never have considered myself to be an advocate or an activist, even though I worked in the field. But seeing what happened with our jobs and seeing that the patients were left without anywhere to go, it really ignited something in me, and I thought, this is not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
I thought maybe if I had said something, maybe if I had done more. And next time I'm not going to have any maybes. I'm going to know that if a moratorium or if a ban comes into play, I did my best.
Right.
I put everything I had into it.
And so what would you tell people that, for other towns, like what can they do to make a difference?
So if you want to make a difference in your own town, you have to get active, you have to be vocal, and you have to be that resource. You have to educate yourself, whether or not it's coming to a seminar, watching these fantastic videos, reading as many books as you can read, and then taking that information and imparting it onto your city council or your friends or your peers and helping change that stigma. Because depending on where you live, it could go to a vote, or it could be up to the city council. If it's up to the city council, you might have to go and actually lobby and educate with them. We're having that happen in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
September 6th is going to be the last, hearing for zoning, whether or not they're going to outright ban brick and mortar dispensaries in the town of Barnstable. And that's where I live. So I've been active and vocal and sharing, but you have to know that the people that are put in charge have absolutely no idea. They could have a place where they're based in bias or they're based in stigma just to lack of education. So you have to come at them kind of with a very gentle approach. You never want to be like, well, you're wrong, or I know something
Exactly.
you don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, wait, well, did you know about your endocannabinoid system? Did you know about, all the different ways they're using this? Did you know that opiate use goes down? Did you know that we're losing 22 veterans a day to being overprescribed? And if they're over the age of 21, they should be able to use their cognitive liberties if they choose to do so.
Oh, I like that.
And use
Cognitive liberties.
Yes, it's one of my favorite terms because I am an
Because you're all
adult.
grown up now.
I am an adult. I'm also a medical marijuana user and a recreational user, and I feel as though those two things can run parallel, even if they're practiced by the same person. We were talking about that earlier,
We were just
and
talking
I loved
about
it.
that.
I
Wasn't that
loved
a really
it.
cool concept?
Yes.
Is, we teach the difference between, what is it, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. There's 3 ways to use it: medically, recreationally, and irresponsibly.
Exactly.
And it all comes down to choice and consciousness. How, why am I taking this bath bomb? Why? Because I need to relax.
Yep.
That could be one of 2 things. You can answer the question. It could be medical, it could be recreational, but basically it has to do with the intent as to why you're going to do something, and it's forcing people to really think about their choices. Why am I doing what I'm doing?
And it's an adult use program, so we should be, talking about, how are adults going to use this, and ever being mindful of making sure that it's in no way alluring to children. We're not advertising to the youth, and we're keeping it for the adults.
Right, right. So yeah, so when you're out of town, and what kind of resistance what kind of questions do people, when you're talking, resistance do you meet?
There is a lot of resistance, and it's pretty much based in fear. So it's hard to, when people are afraid, they get very defensive. They're afraid about children, they're afraid about crime, they're afraid about addiction, or things that are based in, and not based in education, not based in fact. So you have to talk to them and then give them that information, and then have a conversation with them where it really is a back and a forth. And just because you have a different viewpoint than somebody else, and we feel morally on the right side of history, because I believe that we are, but they feel the exact same way.
Right.
They
So
feel
you
the
can't-
exact same way.
Right.
So you have to
Perception.
So I have to take that into consideration and be like, I understand what you're saying. Can you understand what I'm saying? Let's maybe meet in the middle. So just talking to people and maybe getting them to have a conversation, or just looking at it from a different viewpoint, that's kind of all we need to do, and just be respectful of both sides.
Right.
Because even if they don't agree with recreational use, it is here. So
Right.
now that it is here, what are we going to do to make sure that all of your questions and concerns are addressed, so that way we can move forward, and when you see that the sky doesn't fall, we
Right.
can continue to move forward.
So what do you say? I've been to a lot of these town meetings, and oftentimes it's too late. They're making a vote that night, so I get asked to come, and Sherry and I have gone where it's the last day and they've already made a decision. And one of the biggest oppositions I see is about children and teens and teen use. And although it's adult use, they have to be 21. There's no chance they're going to get into the dispensaries. What do you say to parents who believe that normalizing the use is going to make teens use it, or think it's normal and want to use it more? What do we say to them?
I think we have to say to them that I personally take accountability for myself, and I will make sure that I never give it to anybody under the age of 21 years old. And if everybody else that is consuming responsibly makes that same kind of pledge and is responsible, then there shouldn't be any underage use.
Right.
And thinking about talking to your kids and having a real conversation about marijuana, because I've also brought up the facts, well, what about drinking? They're going to be able to drink, and they're also going to be possibly sexually active, so you have to talk to them about safe sex, drinking responsibly, consuming cannabis responsibly.
Yes.
And those are hard, scary conversations. I
Yes.
personally don't have any children. I've never been privy or had those conversations with
But
a
you have
child.
all your little girls.
I have all my own babies. My
Oh,
little,
they're little
like,
beautiful plants. I know. If there's a picture up there of her and your beautiful plants, your girls.
I joke all my friends are having babies, me too. But with them, my friends that are cannabis activists are starting to become mothers themselves,
Yeah.
and now they're thinking about the scrutiny of being a cannabis activist and being a mother and realizing that they need to go to those PTA meetings and say,
Yes.
hi, I am the cannabis mom, and also I am friendly, I am devoted to my child,
Yes.
I'm devoted to safety, and there is no, underage consumption within my house.
Exactly.
Kind of like my dad always had, a liquor cabinet or his alcohol in the fridge, and you knew not to touch it, didn't you?
Exactly.
Don't touch it. Those aren't free. That's for adults only.
Exactly.
So talking to your kids and be like, don't touch it. That's for adults only. I've had a lot of friends who have talked to their kids about their medical marijuana use.
Yep.
Like, this is for mommy. This is for daddy. This is medicine. We don't touch it.
And I did that with my kids. So basically, when I started using cannabis medically, I delved in, I had all the information, and then I was creating a program, the Green Nurse program. So basically what I did is I had my kids, I educated my children as if they were patients. They paid attention. Now, the interesting thing was that they had no idea that cannabis and marijuana was the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. So I was doing all these lessons and, what did you think? Did you learn anything? Tell me what you learned. We would go on and on and on. Finally, when I'm wrapping up how I want to present, when I'm talking to patients, I said, so what do you think about mom being a medical marijuana nurse? What? What? Okay. So cannabis, marijuana, right? So the stigma even in the name.
Yeah.
And once they learned that cannabis was medicine, it was a completely different way of, it was like the light went off,
And that's great parenting, and every parent, needs to have that conversation and then take in their own cultural, spiritual, whatever their family values are, and impart that into the conversation. Because I have known parents that talk to their kids and they say, when you are of the age of 21, and if it is something you want to choose, I'd like to be there your first time.
Yeah.
Or I want to make sure, you're drinking responsibly, because you can turn 21 years old and go out to a bar with your friends.
Yeah.
So what happens when you turn 21 years old and there are brick and mortar dispensaries? Kids might want to go, not kids anymore, adults might want to go and try this new thing that they've been sheltered from their entire lives. Well, they should know about their endocannabinoid system. They should understand milligram dosage. They should just have an awareness and some idea of what
Harm
it is they're
reduction,
putting
safety,
into their body.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you go to an alcohol, if you go to a packy, you go to a liquor store, and you were to get something that's maybe like a sangria or a wine that's maybe 15% alcohol, and then you go and you get something that's maybe a hard alcohol like Everclear that's 100 proof.
Yeah.
Those are two very different alcohols.
Right.
So if I go into one of those marijuana shops and I get a 10 milligram edible, or I get a 70% concentrate, is there a difference? Absolutely,
Yes.
there's a difference. So making sure that even the people behind the counter are educated and telling the patients or the recreational market, hey, this is what a dosage looks like, to be responsible. Just like with alcohol, don't drive. Set and setting, know where you are, know where you're going to be, all of those things. So I feel like personal responsibility is a huge factor, and seems to be the biggest obstacle when people want to play the blame game of, well, what about the children? Well, what about this? Well, what about that? It's like,
Right.
well, what about you? 'Cause
What
I
about
take
you being
responsibility.
accountable?
Yeah.
Right?
So, yes.
Accountable for your life, because here it is the more you know, the more you're responsible for.
Exactly, and I think that right now we actually have a unique opportunity with our youth to maybe do some kinds of case studies and talk to them and be like, hey, we'll give you a survey. Now that you're a freshman, we'll give you a survey when you're a senior. Do you feel like at any point we, advertised to you, did you feel pressured to smoke marijuana? Do you think that now that recreational use is here, the allure has gone away out of a scale of 1 to 5 or something?
Right.
This is invaluable data that we can
Right.
get, because there are states that don't have a decriminalization, they don't have medical, and they don't have recreational.
Right.
So right now we're really in a unique place, being that we were the 5th state to allow for this, the first one on the East Coast. A lot of states are looking to see, well, what is Massachusetts doing? So let's show them how it's done. I think that's really important.
Let's show them how
Right,
it's done
yeah.
the right way.
Exactly.
So
Right.
tell us about Sensimia.
So
How did this
Sensimia.
happen? What is it? How was it born, and how long has it been
Yes.
around? And
Congratulations
Thank you.
on
Thank
your
you.
baby.
Thank you. It is. It's a labor of love for sure. So I had been teaching since 2015. I used to call them Ellen's Cannabis Clinics, because I thought it was like a fun kind of play on. It was primarily cultivation classes, so you'd come in and we talk about the healing and all that kind of stuff. But people always thought it was a recommendations place. Like, oh, is this like a doctor's office? Like, no, actually, it's a punny name. So I realized that the name had to go. So I ended up changing it to Sensimia Seminars, and I had gone out to Jamaica and spoken in Jamaica and gotten to embrace that culture with one of my best friends, Eve Marie, and they used the word, ganja and sensimia, and it was such a beautiful word, and it just felt classic. And I started thinking about, well, what would I want to call my seminars? And I'm like, Sensimia Seminars. And some people know exactly what the word means, and then other people are
like me.
I've never heard it before. No, it's perfect, and it's also a conversation starter.
But I like how it sounds too. And sensi is without seed.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's some people know immediately it refers to marijuana, and for some people, because it's not so overt like cannabis, marijuana, ganja, they don't mind, like, hey, I can wear something that says Sensimia Seminars, or starting up a conversation. I actually ended up going skydiving for my birthday, and my email is ellen@sensimia.com. So when I filled out the release form, one of the girls goes, Sensimia, what does that mean? And one of the instructor goes, it means pot. And the other one goes, no, it doesn't. It means without seed. And then he goes, do you smoke marijuana? I was like, I smoke marijuana. And we just became instant friends. instant friends. And he was like, I'll take you. And he was the guy I ended up jumping out of a plane with. And we just spent the whole time talking about cannabis and where it is today and all these different things. So,
it's an interest.
It can be a conversation starter.
It can.
So I started this because I realized that there was a need for education here in Massachusetts, and there are no formal education. There aren't, like, the colleges and universities aren't holding classes on cannabis or your endocannabinoid system, or how to make topicals or edibles or anything, especially thinking about strain specific or dosage. So I realized that I was in a unique position with what I had done in the United States Air Force, creating curriculum, teaching one-on-one patient counselings, as well as teaching large-scale classes. And then the 2 years I'd had out in Northern California, where I was making the edibles and the topicals and the hashes for the dispensary, as well as cultivating the medicine. So I realized I had a lot of firsthand experience to offer. So
right in there.
So I merged those
Digging
two
in.
skill sets, and then from that started teaching cannabis curriculums. I've taught classes that were just female oriented, so female cultivation classes that lasted 2 months, touching on everything from holistic health to your own garden to how to make cannabis byproducts, to single standalone seminars on how do I make my own edibles, how do I make RSO oil, and then free classes for veterans. Our next class for veterans will be September 29th at the Homegrown Healthcare of Maine, and they're holding a Veterans Appreciation Day, and I'm complementing it by adding education, and then Cannacare Docs is complementing it by actually holding a free Veterans Appreciation Day. So if you're a veteran, you can go into Cannacare Docs, and then if you meet the qualifying conditions, they'll give you a free recommendation, which can be upward of $100. So you'll get a recommendation.
What's the date again?
September 29th, and then with that, you'll be able to, cultivate for yourself, even though you can do that if you're over 21 with recreational, but find a caregiver, and then start to establish that if you were thinking of using cannabis as an alternative medicine, or just a great place to find resources. Yep. Glenn, Catherine, and Sean are amazing. They're going to be doing a barbecue, so it's going to have a very relaxed feel, a very educational, opening feel. So if anybody wants to come in, or just wants to get some information, this would be a great place to do so.
Now, do you have a website that people can go?
I do, www.sensimiaseminars.com. I also have the YouTube and Instagram and a Facebook.
Yes, and we'll be sure to have all of your information on Green Nurse Group, Green Nurse Show, and Cannabis Radio Network social media pages. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Well, ladies, I really appreciate the time, and thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, and we have a video that's coming up. It's an interview with a man by the name of Mike, and he talks a lot about post-traumatic stress and cannabis and how it's actually helped him. And we have that coming up. Video, right? So this was so great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate your time.
Is the video on? No, we don't know yet? We don't know yet.
We might be live.
We might be live.
So I like to say PTS, post-traumatic stress, because to me it's not a disorder. To me it's just who I am now. The weed was the catalyst that got me to where I am now. It was after my time in Iraq that I started to feel the weight of what was going on. It was about 6 months after I got back. I I stopped taking care of myself. I was having really bad anxiety. It got really bad. I was super hyper vigilant. If I went to a restaurant, I'd have to sit facing the door so I knew what was coming in, what was going out. I wasn't leaving my house. Like I got to a point where I stopped going to work because I couldn't leave the house. It was a fear. It was like this fear that was within me that I didn't really understand where it came from. It was just there. And I was diagnosed with a personality disorder not otherwise specified. I found out later was what they were diagnosing people with who were later diagnosed with PTSD. After that diagnosis, it was pretty much the end of my career. I was medically discharged and out within a few weeks. The Navy doctors are who diagnosed me with a personality disorder. As soon as I went to the VA, they said, no, this is PTSD. They rated me for PTSD, diagnosed me with PTSD, and that was the end of that. So the first line of defense for PTSD with the VA is pills. Over a period of 5 years, they put me on 40 different types of medication. You know, I was on all kinds of antidepressants, all kinds of anti-anxiety drugs. I was on pain meds. The pills didn't work for me. I literally, when I say I sat on my couch and drooled on myself, that's what I did. Sat on my couch, hated my life, drooled on myself, and felt sorry for myself. I was watching the National Geographic channel. It was a special about veterans with PTSD using cannabis as an alternative. So that day I called up my friend, asked her to get me some weed, and we sat in my living room and smoked a joint, and I laughed and I smiled and I felt good. That was the turning point in my life. 2 weeks went by and I became a weed activist and made cannabis my purpose in life. While those pills help you not feel anything, that's not the case with marijuana. Cannabis is that thing that kind of makes you think, and it makes you a little bit introspective. You have all this huge purpose in the military, or so you think you have this huge purpose in the military. I lost that when I got out of the Marine Corps. Getting into a cannabis community it really helped me out a lot. It helped me realize I was part of something bigger than myself, and that's what I've wanted. That's what I've been looking for. I mean, I think the most important thing about PTSD, especially with vets, because we have this like masculinity complex, right? Swallow your pride and talk to somebody, because that's the first step in getting better. And I'm living proof of that. You know, I can't say that I'm healed at all, because I still have some times where I have a hard time, but I'm better. And getting into therapy and talking about my problems and just really connecting with other human beings, it's invaluable. And I still have it, but I am not, it doesn't rule my life anymore. Yeah, I smoke.
Hey everybody, we're back.
And today,
And we're here with Axel Valentin. He's United States retired Marine Corps. And we met a while ago, actually, about a month ago. We hung out a little while and we did some interviewing, and as a prize I gave you a bath bomb.
Yes.
And I have another bath bomb for you tonight.
Thank you.
But before we get started, I want you to tell me about your first bath bomb experience. And then we'll get started with the interview.
Yeah, the bath bomb.
Was that good?
It was amazing. It was so amazing that I was supposed to actually wait for someone else, and I didn't. I just actually used it on my own. Then there was a lot of fight after the fact, but
You didn't share the bath
you
bomb.
didn't share.
it's
Yes,
okay though. It's
it's
okay, because maybe next time I share. That's what I said.
Maybe
I will
next
share
time.
next time.
Next time.
Hopefully.
So you have another one coming home, and this is
But I'll make sure that this one doesn't.
Bootylicious. And this is
Bootylicious.
Bootylicious bath bomb, and this is a company that actually donates a lot of gifts to the Green Nurse Group at Reliable Bud. We've met up with them, and they have provided creams and tinctures and salves and bath bombs. And so one of these is going to our guest,
Water, but
Axel.
all right.
That'll be our little secret.
It'll be our little secret. Yes.
Make sure I don't tell nobody about it.
So
you
I
don't
put
have to share.
I put a bunch of pictures up and Facebook posts up, and we did a little talking, and we were just kind of talking about your journey, and basically, you know, one of the posts you put up was that a year ago, what was it, like February 2017, you were at your wit's end.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit
Yeah.
about the statistics, because I've been researching
Yeah,
depression and suicide, and the numbers are astounding. In worldwide, 1 million people a year take their own lives. In the United States, 1 million attempt a year to take their lives, and about 45,000 are successful every year. And veterans, now we have a couple of different numbers, 22 and 20 a day.
The 22 actually was a study that was conducted back in 2014, and then there was a newer study that showed that it's actually 20 point something.
That's what I read today, because
So
I said, wait a minute, where did he get this 20 number? Because I always heard 22.
Yeah.
So I read the new research today, and it's an unbelievable number. And so let's talk about that.
It's a very big number.
Yeah.
If you put it into perspective, you know, it's
A day.
a day. That's
And
20
you
a
personally
day.
lived it.
Yes.
Too.
and
That's the part. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's why it hurts more, because you tend to see and notice why. And the biggest thing is just there's a lot of issues. Before anyone would ask help, in my position, it took a while to ask for help. Why? Because we're taught to figure it out. You know, adapt and overcome. Whatever comes our way, we're gonna figure our way out, and we're gonna push through it, regardless of the obstacle. And that's what
this
I
is
did.
in the military. It's the
Yes.
training. You're going to push
Training.
through it. You're going to get through it. You're going to persevere. You
Yes.
got this.
Yes, and then
Right.
we're used to it. So regardless of whatever obstacle gets put in your way, you're gonna try, regardless what it is, like I said, to get over it. And then there's school, and then the whole reintegration process. You know, you've already, myself was 8.5 years that I was in the Marine Corps. At this point, I, you know, had about, as a recruiter, about 66 kids. So I go from that and being part of something bigger than any one person to being basically put in a home and said you're not good enough to attack the same
Problems
purpose that you
yeah.
had. You won't have the same purpose that you had before, and that's hard. You know, you go from the biggest purpose you can ever find for an individual like me to then go, and then my goal was still to serve
You're-
others.
So are you
and-
talking about leaving the Marines? Is that what you're talking about when you
Yes, it
say?
was-
So trying to reintegrate into civilian life?
Yes.
So
yes,
that was a
it's-
transition.
It's the biggest transition we have when we get out. And then everything's about 100 miles per hour. When you're in, you're ready for that. You know, you're within base or wherever you're at. Everything's 100 miles per hour, right? And you're okay with it. But then when you're out, everything seems slower. And then you
Do you get impatient?
Yes, and now you have to find a way to basically slow yourself down. And a lot of times trying to dumb yourself down. And then it kind of hurts when you have to, like, there's certain things that you may see that might happen due to someone doing something, and then you're like, okay, well, that's not going to end well. For example, like you have a kid and you're telling the kid, don't jump on that stone. Keep jumping, you're going to fall. And then it happens. After that, you're like, I told you so. But we have that in a different way, where we see things and we're taught to look outside the box and look at the bigger picture.
So all the different angles of what could possibly
Yes.
happen.
Yes. So then we come out and then we're looked at as weird because of it. But we have these different skills that are not being utilized. So when we come back, we have all these skills that are not considered dormant because we can't use them.
Right.
Right.
And then not only that, we're out of this base where we have complete and utter feeling of tranquility because you have others
The
who have the
connection.
same feeling you have, who you know that in a drop of a hat would go and fight for you. And then you
Right.
get out of that family, that culture, and you're put into a culture like now, out of in the civilian world. It's hard because now you're looking behind you all the time because you don't have that other guy next to you who you can basically look at and be like, yeah, you have that side, I have this side. Even if joking around or going to the base, you didn't have to worry about that. Now you're out of there and you're completely out, and it's a whole culture shock.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the social part of this, because it's, I mean, what you're talking about is a social connection that you have with each other. So when you get out and you're now put into a place where all your peers that were there before you went into the Marines, how does that work? I mean, do you feel connected in any way? How do you feel socially?
You feel connected with different people. Normally, you would connect really quick with a veteran, and then if it's a Marine, now it's completely different because now your connection has gone tenfold, because then you can start joking about the
Marine jokes.
The Marine jokes. Let's just say the uncomfortable humor for many, but we understand each other. So there's that. But when you come out, we have this where we would give 100% to anybody. It's loyalty. Once you're friends, we will do anything for you, and that's that type of dedication you have and that loyalty that you actually get within a veteran. Now that is the same thing when we get out, and then we expect the same. So that's hard, because now when someone messes up, not just once, not just twice, and just when you try to reintegrate, you're trying to, now you're like, well, now I know this isn't like it was on base. Now I can't trust these same people.
Right.
Just something as simple as work,
Right.
where in the military or in the Marine Corps, everything is set and has a certain way of working, and you work your way up, and regardless of your age or anything, its rank is a very big deal, and everybody shows respect to everybody, and nobody will step on each other to get up to the next level. A lot of times the military, the Marine Corps, that's my impression when I was in, but when I came out, it's completely different. Now we go in and we give 100% work, like I keep saying, like, and I try to sell. I went into work at a car salesman for a little bit, and I didn't like it because it's not the same passion, and we are a very passionate group. First of all, to join the military, you have to have some type of passion. Actually, I'm the biggest thing when it comes to joining the Marine Corps. You're humanitarian or military, because you have to put yourself in front of, everybody else's needs in front of yours.
Right.
So you're a humanitarian nature, and then from there, you have the warrior nature also. So you have those two kind of conflicting with each other.
So we have the humanitarian, and then what about the man, right? So here you are, you're home, you were on a lot of medication, right? You had a lot of pills in February, and you wanted to end it.
Yes.
And your wife opened up the door.
Yes.
And you guys had a conversation.
And everything kind of, from there, we kept talking about how did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here? First of all, how did I go from someone as happy and as joyous as I was to not even feeling, not even laughing, or
Did you feel numb?
numb? Everything I had to be emotionally numb because of all the pills that they gave me. I was on 4 different types. For pain, I was on narcotics, opioids for muscles, and then I was on benzos to control my panic attacks and anxiety. Then they had me on sleeping aids, and then I always say that any 2, if I were to take it, missed those, I could have not woken up.
Yeah.
And that time, in February, there was just so much. My goal at that point was to be a social worker and to advocate for veteran rights, and was to work for the VA at that specific moment. And I kept looking, and then even when it was time, when I kept thinking, okay, I'm gone, I'm leaving, forget everybody. My first train of thought is like, how am I gonna do it? Okay, pills. Why? Because that's, if I do it with pills and maybe something that I can write, the message may be stronger, and maybe we'll stop over medicating our veterans.
So you actually thought about this long and hard.
I did, and then once I had it, looking at it, and I'm like, okay, yes, it's about time, I guess. And there it comes, and then
the grace of God and your wife.
Yes, and then we just.
What brought you to that point? You said you were in the bathroom.
Yes.
So how did you get to that point where you said that's it?
It's physical pain on a daily basis. I deal with both ankles, knees, back issues.
Is this all injuries from being in the Marines?
Military, yes. Also, I deal with emotional issues. Also, the whole agoraphobia, leaving the house, being in a car for long, being alone like that. There's a lot of issues that people might not know. And then, you know, you talk to people and they say, oh, you're pretty good at talking.
You
It's like,
remember
yes.
you said the silent
Like,
war.
yeah,
The silent war.
yeah,
that
it's
people
that
can't
whole,
see.
people don't know what they're going through. It is a silent war. And people, they want to talk to someone about it, but there's a huge stigma around it that you're weak if you do. And that's why I actually personally was trying to look for help. I reached out to the VA and certain members of the VA, but their interpretation of help was medication that I didn't want. And at that point, you know, after sitting down and talking to my wife and everything, I knew at that point that we had to change something. You know, because it's Groundhog Day. You go to sleep, you're like, this is the only time I get some type of
Relief.
when I close my eyes. So you know what, I'm gonna close my eyes. Then wake up like, halfway through the night, I can't. You flip over and I'm like, I'm 32 years old. I feel like I'm 90. But
You're so young.
yeah, and then after all that stuff, we're trying to figure out a different way, a different avenue. And I used to I have a cousin, Josue, who's actually calls himself the healer. Me and him, he used to always bother me. You should try cannabis, man. Trust me, you should try it. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna try that. You know, and in the military and in our culture, we're ingrained that it's a drug. If you do marijuana, you're a drug addict. So in my head, I'm like, I ain't touching that. And in the military, that was instilled in me because if I could have gone and with all the pills I was taking because of all the pain, I was still taking a lot of this while I was in. But if I were to go on do the urinalysis and come out hot on all those other stuff, they're okay with. But if it was marijuana, you would have been
So all the
discharged.
narcotics and the benzodiazepines
Yeah.
and the muscle relaxants and
Those are all
anything
good.
else was okay.
They're all good. Now, if someone were to, let's say, had a bad weekend and didn't want to do any of that and maybe smoke the joint, and then went back for, let's say, back to the military and they possibly did a urinalysis, that person gets kicked out of the military.
Dishonorably
Dishonorably
discharged.
discharged. And, you know, I've met a lot of military people, especially, you know, one when I was in D.C. that told me this. You know, he was ahead of his peers, and he went home, and it was like that whole mom died. Then the uncle passed away 2 days later. That he didn't have much to do. So what do you think he do? You know, he's like, instead of doing drinking, because he understood that if he drank, he was going to lose control, he smoked marijuana.
Yeah.
He told me that when he got back, they did a urinalysis, and he just they piled, and then they did the whole process and kicked him out. You know, so
tell me about your cousin.
oh yeah,
Your
he,
cousin.
he
Your
keeps-
healer.
he kept bothering me, and then I looked at him. So one day I just called him. I was like, okay, I'm ready to start it. All right, how are we gonna do this? And he laughed, of course, because it was years. This wasn't just something he kept bugging me for maybe since I was in. So I was 19 years old. You're talking about 13 years. And when I told him, he was very excited. He actually came and brought me paper, brought me different rolls up, different ways of me to consume it, and said, this is the best way for you, and just use this much. You're only going to smoke this much, and we're going to sit here and we're going to see what happens. So he basically kind of did it, and then that was actually that first day, and the strain was Girl Scout cookies. How did I know the strain? Because he was looking for what was best for depression, PTSD, sleeping, and he's the one that was look it up and found it, and brought it to me with all the stuff, and even he's like, okay, now you try this, and it was like the little light come on, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And he's like, you know what to do. And right there, did a couple, and that night was the first time I actually had a full night's sleep.
Oh.
Full night, pain-free. Of course, just like anything else, it was the dosage. It was the first time I tried it. And after that, it was he made sure that he did everything to keep my dosage right, basically.
He was
And
a good caregiver.
Yeah,
He's taking care of you.
He is, and even to this day, I can call him and be like, "Look, I don't know. I heard something about some, which is what I did last time. I went to the doctors for some pain on my shoulders because it popped in and out of place. He brought me a cream, and it actually worked.
South. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And every time I just might as well go more the holistic route.
Yes.
Because, and then you look at the side effects. Let's look at the side effects. One plant took out what 4 different pills did to me. And what's the side effect that one plant has? Okay, I do eat at night. I become the Cookie Monster. But you know what?
So the medications that you were on,
Yes.
tell us about that.
Yeah.
No,
Are
I
you
was
still taking them?
No.
So how long did it take
No.
you to discontinue those medications?
That
and
day.
did you talk to that day?
That
was
day,
it?
cold turkey that day.
And did you talk to your doctor about it?
Yeah.
Just cold turkey, no.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's rough.
The only thing I take is the SSRI because that's the withdrawal on that is bad. But
Yeah.
everything else, actually, cannabis helped me with the withdrawal. I had the symptoms, the withdrawal symptoms, and everything else wasn't nearly as bad as everything else. Plus, the stuff I did in the military, I was able to kind of overcome it with the whole mind over matter. Okay, I lied. It sucked.
It was.
I was
bad,
lying.
right?
It sucked the whole
did?
time. Yes. No. It
Well,
sucked.
there's a lot of side effects to
It was.
discontinuing
Yeah,
abruptly.
yeah.
We never recommend it.
No,
so-
they tell you not to. Take your time, please. Don't do that. But I did, and I was actually the best thing.
And you get through it.
Just
I
got
did.
through it.
Got through it. I feel a lot better. Now, I'm not saying that there's a lot of things in life that is happening, and I'm not saying they're necessarily good, but I'm actually able to feel, and that's what people don't understand. What the drugs did, all those stuff they gave us, it took away from feeling mad, feeling angry, feeling envious, feeling happy. You name it. It took away from everything.
You just numb.
Numb. So you didn't even know how to feel at times.
Couldn't process emotions.
No, and then you see other people feeling happy, and I can fake the funk. I can act happy, but I didn't feel it. So as time progressed, I had to relearn why was I so mad? Why am I mad? Okay, it's because I can't do it, but it's because this now has allowed me a chance to understand my emotions, and it's actually not just that, but now I can begin the whole cognitive behavioral therapy, the
Yes.
dialectical behavioral therapy, which I used to be a counselor, a mental health counselor when it came to in a substance abuse place, and actually that where I first started, that seed was also kind of growing because of it, because a lot of these people were in these rooms on Suboxone
Yeah.
to overcome
Yeah.
their medication or methadone, and how can they grasp these concepts of dialectical behavioral therapy and mindfulness
They can't.
if they're not fully there?
Exactly.
And then we had a couple people that smelled like cannabis, and we had a certain mental health provider that was very angry about that, and I was like,
They probably
They
they
were the
probably got
best
more out of the
ones.
session.
they were actually the best, the most
Right.
mindful people in the session. So it was just that, and then other things that just kept adding. It didn't make sense. And then I'm one that I have to debunk any myths. So if someone tells me, "Oh yeah, no, it's not gonna do," I did research. I had to do enough research to be like, okay, this is why it's bad. Because at the time I was a mental health provider, how can I tell someone not to do it if I don't know exactly why? So
Right.
that's why people would say no because it's illegal. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but I haven't heard anyone overdose off of marijuana. So,
yeah.
and then I kept doing more research. Oh yeah, it was all just rooted out of racism to begin with in the early 1900s. Oh, before
Yes.
then, in the 1800s, was used for all medicinal purposes.
Yes.
Okay. And then you do more research and more research. And then I'm thinking to myself as I'm doing this research, I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't done this much research on a medication that they gave me at the doctors.
Exactly.
Why? Because we are ingrained to believe that these doctors have our best interests at heart. And they do, but do you understand that they're limited to what they know?
Yeah.
And if they don't understand about the cannabis or what it does, they're going to be just the same way as most people are. It's ignorant. And
Yeah.
ignorance is not necessarily a bad word. It's just that they don't
Well,
understand.
it's an uninformed. They're making a decision,
Yes.
not having the information.
So instead
Right.
of, and I'm
Uninformed
big,
decision.
instead of going over there and saying, well, okay, let me see, you're a little pain and get right out of Vicodin. There's other ways around that. And that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. It's federal. So for the VA itself, it's going to take more push.
Yeah.
Because it's a federal law that needs to get you know.
So what do you see right now as being like what do you see, how do you see, what is your mission and your vision for veterans? Because I know
Well,
you have a big, you've got a
yes.
wonderful vision.
Yes.
I want to hear that.
It's all depending on the actual.
The Oasis.
The Oasis. It's the veteran Oasis, and the idea is us helping each other, because the DAV has it.
Bringing that team back together, right?
Yes, because veterans helping veterans is the best way, because not just veterans helping veterans, but understanding what we're going through. When you deal with a group like the substance abuse group, you have to take different courses to get either a LADAC or any type of actual degree for that area.
Right.
Now, when you work with veterans, there's no such thing. You know, you can get in there and you're trying to bring your knowledge of what happened somewhere else into the veteran community. It's not going to work.
Right.
Because we have a different way of working. We take in way more before our breaking point. And if we ask for help, it's because we need it immediately.
There you go.
That's a good point. You know, I
That's
don't know that a
important.
lot of people understand that. How can they understand if they are not a veteran? They haven't had that
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
So I'm
and-
glad you're sharing that.
Yeah.
And I always use Atlas as the Greek god who carries the world on his shoulder. I always use that because we try to take as much as we can until we can't no more, and that's when we ask for help. And now when it's too late, that's when it crushes us. And the biggest thing is that whole stigma of going to mental health and all that other stuff was big.
Remember,
So-
you mentioned that, the malingering.
the malingering aspect
Stigma.
of it, and,
Yeah.
and not just that, you know, you tell someone you have a mental health, or where were you? You were in the counselor, they look at you weird, you know.
Yeah.
I never understood that, but
Let me tell you, if I could see a psychiatrist every day, I would. Because why not, right? Tell
So
someone
tell
else
us
my problems.
Again, now back to the discontinuation of medication. So
Yes.
what did so you use a VA doctor?
yes.
So what happened there?
Well, now we're actually fighting because the whole caregiver support issue, they want to take away certain aspects of our benefits because, you know, first of all, not that I don't trust the VA, but there's certain aspects of the VA that I do not believe in. Until there's a big change and an overhaul in understanding. I'm not saying that we need to go different places, because people need to understand before World War I there was no VAs. So we had veterans fighting outside of medical places. Now that there is a veteran center, why not staff it with people that understand with the competency needed to deal with the veteran community, which is all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Because if you knew what we were going through, I guarantee you the first time any veteran, you know, asked for help, they wouldn't be turned away like in any other. You look it up on Google and just put down veteran turned away from the VA. It's just nonstop
Oh,
and that's after that you'll hear also commit suicide. Why? Because they reached out for help for a reason.
and they didn't get it.
And that's once they,
Yeah.
at that point, that was at their worst. So when they asked and they couldn't receive it, they're like, okay, well, I tried.
Man.
That's all you, at that point, you're like, you know, I actually feel good with myself because I tried. So then, you know, that's the whole thing. And my biggest thing for the veteran Oasis, getting back to that, I'm sorry, I kind of
That's all right.
okay.
do
It
some
all
of this.
it brings us back to the same.
Yeah, it's the use of the cannabis, but the information of how do we use that to help them get off the medication, and how do we use that to have them, instead of have them not talk, have them in a group of veterans helping veterans.
Yes.
And I know of a lot of social workers who are veterans who are willing to be in this place. And not just that, we also want to use, you know, on each base there was the gym. And people don't understand that the nutrition aspect is huge. And not just nutrition,
the nutrition.
gym and all the stuff that you would want in a resource center, but have it for the veteran community and have them all there, all in
Yes.
one resource center. And then you can actually use the cognitive behavioral therapies and use the group therapies and yoga. Why? Because they'll be more open to it.
Yes.
And not just
they
that,
would.
you know, it's when you're the first time I was able to actually use cannabis and started using, I was able to stretch. Does
Yeah.
it hurt? Of course it hurts, but it's not unbearable.
Exactly.
It helps with the pain.
It does. It kind of the cushion, right? The pain
Yes.
becomes in the background. Well, listen, we are running out of time.
Oh, I am so
And-
sorry.
Oh my
No,
God,
we're
honey,
so
can I
happy
tell
to
you?
have you.
No,
if you
I
want
know.
to say.
We could keep going and going and going. But I have to mention one of our sponsors. Revolutionary Clinics, 67 Broadway in Somerville. They're one of our favorite dispensaries. They actually do have a lot of wonderful things on Thursdays. They have Stash and Bash days where they have veterans. Last week they had veterans over, and just all day long they had a cookout with hot dogs and hamburgers, and everyone got to hang out. And
Is that Thursdays?
yeah, so I'll send you a link on that. So yes, Revolutionary Clinics. They're one of our sponsors, and they have Green Nurse Group Days as well, where we get to go in and we get to educate. We meet with their patients. We go over the menu, and we talk about different things and help patients make choices. We do have a video coming up that I'm going to put on right now, and then we'll wrap up the show. Hi, this is Sherry. I'm Green Nurse from Green Nurse Radio and Cannabis Radio Network. And we're here at Revolutionary Clinics, one of our favorite dispensaries, because we consider it to be a home away from home. And I'm with Bruce, who I met in January. And Bruce, I want you to tell me why you really love coming to Revolutionary Clinics and why it's your choice.
Okay. So when I started studying the marijuana, I went to a lot of the clinics. I went to all of them that were open at the time. This was 2 years ago. And I ranked them based on their staff knowledge, based on how they treated people, based on how they answered questions. This clinic blew me away with their emphasis on educating the patient and empowering the patient to be in charge of something. Their staff is well educated. Sometimes I just come here for a hug, you know. I mean, it's a nice place to shop, and I can't tell you the last time I went to a pharmacy like Walgreens and got a hug from the pharmacist. So I like coming here.
And I like coming here too, because Revolutionary Clinics, they put patients first. Education is of the utmost priority, and they allow us to come in and to educate their patients and to help them to make choices that are appropriate for them. So I am so thrilled that they've given us this opportunity, and Revolutionary Clinics, you get the Green Nurse Group thumbs up. And that was Revolutionary Clinics. So listen, if you are a new patient, Revolutionary Clinics has a special discount for new patients. Go in and say CRN. Hi, this is Sherry. I'm Green Nurse from Green Nurse Radio and Cannabis. So this has been an absolute wonderful
This has
show.
been great, you guys.
I do want to
appreciate
mention
it.
one other thing. Reliable Bud, I forgot. Flower Power. I know, huh? I'm like all over the place here tonight. But Reliable Bud is another one of our sponsors, and they're having an event. We were the charity last time at their Maui Wowie event, where they donated a portion of the proceeds to our underserved patient population. And they're having another event on September 29th from 1 to 7 p.m., and it's the 70s theme, which is going to be nice. So we'll all be there.
Oh, and let's not forget to introduce Grace.
Oh,
This is our CBD dog.
yes,
She's a little neurotic, but
she's very
the
neurotic.
CBD helps her.
With the CBD helps
calm
her.
her down and makes her happy.
Yep. And then next week, we have a very moving show next week. We have Dr. Eric Ruby coming on. He's one of the only pediatricians in the state of Massachusetts that certifies children for medical cannabis. He'll be joining us on the phone, calling in for an interview. And we also have a mother. Her name is Jessica Abbott, and we're going to be honoring her daughter, Nora. Her daughter, Nora, lost her fight with Batten disease in February of 2017. And Jessica is going to come on and share a very compelling story of how medical cannabis improved the quality of life of her child before she died.
So,
So,
please join us
please
next
join
week,
us.
next Wednesday at 8 o'clock.
Yep. And
Right here.
want to thank you guys all so much.
Yeah.
It's been a great, great show.
Thank
and
you
we're
for having
signing
me.
off.
They're
We
awesome.
honor our veterans. Thank you all so much, and have a great night.